Welcome to Beyond Rent, the property management podcast brought to you by Rent Manager. Each episode, we sit down with an expert to talk industry updates, tech solutions, and top tips for those in the property management space. And now, let's get to the conversation and go Beyond Rent.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Beyond Rent. We have a really great episode today because we're going to dive into a very important but sometimes overlooked aspect of our business, inspections. They've been around a long time, but that doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement. So we have Ray from Property Inspect here today to tell us more about that. Ray, welcome to Beyond Rent.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is really going to be a fun conversation. Like I said, there's all types of different aspects to our business, and some get more playtime than others, right? Get more focus than others, but they're all important. And what's really important is that we just find ways to continue to improve them and make them better over time to create better experiences and better operations for our industry. Before we jump into inspections and learn more about that, let's learn more about you. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you're all about.
Great. Yeah. I'm Ray Costello. I'm Director of U.S. Operations for Property Inspect. We're a global company based out of the U.K. Got a team of about 5 here in the U.S. We operate in about 40 different countries. So we've been a Rent Manager partner for 2.5 years now, and really enjoying your customer base and going to your events.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. We really enjoy working with your team. Tell me a little bit about how long you've been in the industry. Is this your first time in the kind of the property management industry? And if so, what are some of the things you've done in your career before that?
Thanks. Yeah. So I kind of front-loaded my career with facility operations. I started in hotels and restaurants, moved over to the club industry for about still the restaurant part of that for almost 10 years, and then I worked in senior living for about 7 years, and that's when I really started to work within property management, because senior living is kind of managed property management, or it's more of a managed property management, hands-on. So that's when I really started to see the need for documentation, for being able to efficiently document things. From there, I moved to software sales for about 2 years, outside of still kind of on the restaurant side, and after that, I decided, hey, I want to do something different. And that's where I found Property Inspect. And I actually almost created my job with Property Inspect. I wanted something different. So I was living in San Diego at the time, and I started to work with Airbnb on their luxury retreat side, and literally doing inspections for them. So I would go to onboard houses or see what the housekeeping looked like, or do inventories of houses all around San Diego County. And the app that I used was Property Inspect. And I had never used an inspection tool like this. I never used an inspection tool. It was always checklists when I was on facilities, always checklists and that sort of thing. And I remember when I was being onboarded to work with Airbnb, it was like a half an hour meeting. And they're like, oh, you're going to use this app, have at it. Just sent me out on my way. And I did about 100 or 150 inspections, a lot over like a 6 or 8 month period. And I was just really, really impressed with how easy it was to use that software. So I literally stalked the CEO, and I was like, hey, his name's Steve Rad. And I said, hey, I've been using your application with Airbnb for a little over 6 months now. And I'm really impressed with it. Who's selling your tool here in the United States? And he got back to me and he said, well, I am, but I'm doing it from England, and I have, children, and I'm doing this at 9 o'clock at night. And yes, we would love to have somebody sell the tool to take ownership of selling it here in the U.S. So that was about 8 years ago.
Wow. Time flies. And I really, really enjoy that story, because we've all used software before, and whether we're impressed with it or not, I don't think most of us have gone to the point of saying, hey, I'm so impressed with this. I need to go work for this company. I need to learn more about them. I need to, see where else they're plugged in, how else they're marketing to, a specific market. But that's your path, right? You're like, hey, this is good enough that I would love to attach my name to it and go out there and sell this product.
Mm-hmm. And there's a pattern of that across the company. Other folks that are in the role that I have, same thing. Have pretty much found, have pretty much found the company and the product and said, hey, how can I be part of this? And that's how our company has grown. And we're about 50 right now. We develop all our own, kind of like Rent Manager. We develop all our own in-house. We don't outsource anything.
Yeah, that's I think it's the way to do it, right? You take ownership, and it always gives you lots of opportunity for growth, and also, again, just really good customer experiences as you build out that product.
And innovation as well.
Yeah.
You see a lot more innovation on that side because you've got teams collaborating with each other. You've got customers saying, hey, will you build this for us? Or it would be nice if your software did this. And then it gives us the opportunity to cut through the red tape and actually build things.
Yeah, get right to the source, right? Love it. Okay, well, let's talk about inspections then. So even kind of tying back to your story there of working with Airbnb and doing inspections yourself, let's set the foundation for maybe even some people watching this or listening to this that aren't on the side of our industry where they're doing inspections. What should we know about the base level foundations, the types that are out there, and maybe the relevance to the operations?
Sure. I'll go back to my time in senior housing. Right? We were doing move-in and move-out inspections in senior housing, but they were pen and paper, and this is 10 plus years ago. And I know that there's a lot of folks out there that are still doing inspections with pen and paper. We're unapologetically anti-pen and paper. So move-in, move-outs, semi-annuals, property walks. There's all sorts of different types of inspections that you can create with our system, first off, and then just in general. If you can think of it, if you can think of it, it can be created. And documenting, I guess I would say if you're not documenting, then you don't have documentation, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, and there are still a lot of people still using pen and paper. I think a lot of people are trying to be more digital with things like inspections, but it still happens, especially when you think of all the different things that maybe somebody would want or need some type of inspection or checklist for. Sometimes you create all of these customized, nuanced ones that aren't industry standard, but they're standard for your operations because you just want to do things a certain way.
Yeah, I would. It's a good point. And I would say, don't get caught up always in the word inspection, because sometimes that sounds so official, like I'm doing an inspection, and that can scare people, first off. But if it's a checklist, maybe you call it a checklist. Maybe you just call it a documentation process. Maybe you call it something else within your organization, but it's still documenting something for a reason to be able to pull it up later, and whether it's you pulling up later or somebody else pulling up later, to be able to look and see what something looked like at a certain point in time, a year ago, a month ago, a day ago, 2 years ago. And that's helpful to any operation. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, well, working for a company like Rent Manager, like that I do, I mean, that's what a lot of our software is doing. That's what almost all software is doing at some levels, creating a history, right? Documentation, data that you can go back and look at and understand what's really happening at any given time. So obviously that's really, really important. So let's, most people know about inspections. Most people are going to understand that because they either are doing it, they have done it, they manage it, they have selected the software that they're using to do it with. But what are some of the challenges that really still kind of exist within this part of the operations, within inspections? When you talk to people, what do they say? This is what's really still hard for our team.
Mm-hmm. I would say first, it's the thought of actually doing an inspection. So right now, you've got a couple of things. Sometimes you've got operational teams that have been with companies or with organizations for a long period of time, and it's, hey, I've been doing it this way, and I'm going to continue to do it this way because this way works for me. And not taking the time to even learn about what's new. And I think that depending on the hierarchy of a company, you've always got, especially, and I've seen this over the past 2 or 3 years in general, you've got a lot of people that are coming in and they're championing. They want to make organizations more efficient, right? And everybody's carrying around a phone in their hands. So it really makes sense when we get inbound or people that want to talk about changing their processes. It's always number one. It's like, hey, we know we can do it. We've been doing it this way for a long time. We just want to learn. Can you show us? So I think, to answer your question, just getting people to think about how they can be more efficient and get out of their norms or get out of their box that they're in, and say, what can we do? What's going to save me more time? What's going to help our business be more successful? And that's where we start conversations.
Yeah, and you had mentioned, this idea of, we've always done it this way. I don't care who you are, how long you've worked somewhere. Either you've said it or you've heard somebody say it. That's really, really common. That somebody's like, well, we've always done it this way. It's not a big deal. It really doesn't take that much time. We don't want to retrain our staff on this new process or new tool. But when you really break down, if there's any level of manual work, pen and paper, or even, let's be honest, even like an Excel spreadsheet, anything like that, where the data isn't really tracked in a way that's accessible and you can pull the data out and use it for things, it really becomes very, very limited really, really quickly. And I also wonder, if you haven't changed the process in a certain amount of time, is the staff even all doing it the same way anyways? Or do they all have their own nuanced little way? Like they have the original checklist and they went through and they just made a few edits to it to meet their specific needs.
Yeah. If you're doing an inspection, if you're doing inspections already and you're using checklists, first off, I would say that's great. You've already crossed the bridge. You've started the process. But I think with any process, whether it's software or operations, revisiting what could make it more efficient, make your life easier, and potentially make like your tenant's life easier or better, is worth having a conversation about every once in a while. So that's why we've got a team, and it's just like, call us and talk to us about it. We're not super salesy or anything like that, But I would also say, think about it this way: when you're doing inspections the correct way, you're now being proactive instead of reactive. And a lot of companies with reactive would be, did we do that inspection last year? Where is it? Is it in a file? Did you email it? Are there images? Can you check your phone? That's what pen and paper world is like, and that's just reactive. And ultimately that takes you more time as opposed to just saying, yes, it's all here.
Yeah. And I think a lot about like compliance and risk and things like that. 90% of the time, you probably don't need some of that documentation, that data that you've created. But those moments when you do need it and you're trying to go back and you're trying to find that picture, you're trying to find that proof, you need those elements for whatever reason. It could be very costly if you don't have it.
Yep. I think that the state of the world right now, I think we're all dealing with insurance and insurance companies and insurance issues. Compliance, the word compliance itself is only going to be more at the forefront of every conversation moving forward. So if you have it, if you are able to document, and we do a lot of work in affordable housing as well. It's an area that we work in. So we went into that about 3 years ago, and that compliance side, it's changing so rapidly within HUD and affordable housing, whether at the state, local, or federal level, that not having that documentation or having it handwritten is becoming a real problem for a lot of people. And we get frantic calls on that side at this point, like, oh my gosh, how do we do this? They're asking for it. And
well, and typically I'd imagine they're calling frantic because they've made mistakes, right? They can't find the data. It's going to probably cost them something. And now they're saying, well, going forward, we can't take this risk anymore. The risk is too big. And really most risks, when we think about compliance, and it does come up quite often, those risks get bigger over time, right? Not smaller. So if you're not doing anything today and you've gotten by, it's only a matter of time before something happens.
Yeah, it gets back to the reactive versus proactive. And I think with the state of compliance, documentation, and whether that be whether you're trying to get funding or for affordable housing, or it's your tenant saying, you can't charge me for that, or prove that you're going to take this or that, to have that information readily at hand with images and comments and timestamped events associated with it. It just puts everybody in a place. And this is both sides. It's not just the property management side where they know that they have the images, they know that they have the documentation around what something looked like at a certain point in time. But if the tenants know that as well, and they have copies of that, everybody's on the same page. And this way, when there's a move out or a move in, or there's some sort of dispute around what something looked like, there really is no dispute anymore, because this is what it looked like then, this is what it looked like now.
Yeah, so much easier to have that clear communication. Everyone's on the same page, which really makes me kind of think and move towards this idea of like best practices when we talk about inspections. Obviously, there's challenges that you're trying to overcome, but to overcome those, you really have to think like, well, this is the standard. This is what we really should be working off of. Are there any best practices that kind of come to mind for you that relate to inspections?
Yeah. So I would say the first time, like when you're going to digital, the first time that you do an inspection, you need to make that you need to take the extra 10 minutes or 15 minutes and really do your due diligence and document that space, because moving forward from there, it's just comparing what it looks like from that point forward. So if you do that first inspection as a best practice, do that first inspection perfectly, whether it's you or somebody in your company or 5 years later, you're really doing a service to everybody that's going to be involved in the process moving forward. There's that, and then actioning items, things, preventative maintenance, that sort of thing. You really get the ability, and there's a lot of people that can do this now with their phones and just take photos, but still have to find it and figure out or email it or add it to a sheet. But looking at your, say, appliances over the course of 2 or 3 years, you're really going to be able to, like, if we're talking about like a multifamily or property manager, looking at your appliances, say, over the course of 2 or 3 years and seeing what's about to go gives you a lot more leverage when you have the ability to, say, buy things in bulk or get better deals on things when you buy it at a certain time, as opposed to the dishwasher just went down. I've got to run out. I've got to pay top dollar. I've got to get somebody. I've got to react to all these things because my tenant's upset. So actioning, being able to really see life cycles around what's happening within your unit or your properties or your organization.
Yeah, that is and really kind of what you said, they're all kind of ties together. This idea of that first one sets the stage. Everything is going to be a copy of that to some degree, right? And then this idea of over time being able to really pay attention to the quality and the remaining life of any element of that unit, right? Appliances, but maybe even carpeting, flooring, all of these things, start questioning, well, at what point will we need to replace it? Well, if you're paying attention, you can start seeing those items like, okay, we're moving along pretty quick here, and how this is aging. This looks like it might be at a point where failure might be a problem for it, and you can get ahead of it, right? Instead of, again, proactive versus reactive mindset is so much better. And I wonder, like you said, setting the stage for that first inspection is so key, and moving away from, manually or using it with a system that maybe is a little limited really allows you to pass on a lot of information from one inspection to the next and make sure that it's all of the information. I'd imagine in your system and most systems, it's requiring certain things to be done, right? Where the person doing the inspection doesn't have control over what they document or what they do not document.
Yeah, we call that conditional logic within our system, and the designer or creator of the system internally, the champion, would be someone who says, okay, if we're documenting the fire alarms in all our units and we have one that's an answer, does a fire alarm work? No. At that point, they would be required, in order to move forward in the inspection process itself, required to say, take a photo, add an action, add comments, before they could move on to the next one. Especially it's really important with those high safety items.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And that idea of, again, I guess having a standard, built into what's expected and how people have it. And then I'm wondering if any best practices that you would share around communication. And I think of communication in multiple different angles: internal communication, external communication. Who needs to know what's going on when an inspection happens? So
yeah, great. The tenants obviously or whoever's occupying the units. If it's a third-party inspection company or somebody external, you'd want to let the property manager know. And then all sorts of, I would say, loops around the information flowing as well. And we do that. So you have the ability to build like contacts into a property. So that, for example, like if I was a contact on a property and there was an inspection scheduled for that property, let's say I'm the tenant, I would get a notification saying, Joe's coming to property on this day at this time to do this type of inspection. That could be email or SMS as well. And then once you've gone through the workflow itself, meaning like Joe went and did the inspection, went back, maybe did a little edit on it, and then pushed it to a certain phase, a copy of that report gets sent out to multiple people that could be stakeholders within the property. And then one of the things that I think is really great about the system is when you do send those reports out, you've really got an accountability trail, because it'll say Joe sent that report to Ray. Ray opened that email. Ray clicked on that report. Ray signed that report. And all that information loops back to you, and it's all on the property. So if it's 6 months later, a year later, 3 years later, and we're logging back on, or maybe somebody new that wasn't even there then logs back on, all that information is right there for them. Yeah. I'd like to loop back to a law for your California listeners. There's a new law that came out. It's called AB 12. And it actually requires, on a move-out inspection, documentation with photo documentation of the entire unit. And there's a lot of people that do not know this. So there's literally thousands of property managers all around California that are finding that surprise right now, that they have to document via photo at least units upon move-out.
Well, that's really interesting. I was not aware of that law. Obviously not in California, but that's really impactful to the industry, because a lot of the things that happen in a place like, California, or sometimes we say New York and maybe some other places, a lot of times will end up kind of spreading into other states. So if you're not in California, you might think, well, I don't have to worry about that law. Not today. There could be a chance very soon that you would. And it really is just, again, goes back to this. It's just really a best practice to do all these things, but it becomes even more serious when the law starts requiring it.
Yeah. And we're seeing it as well with HUD. They have said it. We're going to go digital. You need to go. They keep pushing it. They've pushed it now a year. But the new deadline for them is October 12th or something like that. So they're trying to make people make this move from pen and paper.
Yeah, we'll see if that date holds or if they're going to move it again.
They'll probably move again, but they're trying, and yeah. that's what we like to see.
Yeah. And I really like the point about accountability. And that is one thing that I think is so important when you have a process, that the right people know what's going on and that they are held accountable for it. When you're just writing something down or you're logging it somewhere, but there's no like true notification system tied to it, it's so easy to say, well, I forgot to tell so-and-so, or I meant to send that to the tenant. It's so easy to miss those things. But if the system is already built to do those things, it really takes that away from the responsibility of the user, allows them to focus on what they're best at, and then the system can kind of take care of the rest. And then you have that accountability. So if they go back and say, hey, it was in this condition on the last inspection, Ray signed off on it, and Ray didn't do anything to address it, now we know what happened, right? We can go address that. When you don't have that, it's just kind of this emptiness of wondering what happened and who's responsible and people pointing fingers, and really technology can cut through all of that.
Yep. And that's just what you described is more on the property manager side or on the multifamily side, but on the tenant side as well. And I know this because I hear it all the time, is that the property manager now gets the ability to know when the email was answered or when it was opened, when the report was accessed, because now they have to say, oh, maybe it went to, they'll hear it, I'm sure, maybe it went to spam. I didn't get that. You didn't send that to me. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't see that, and we hear it all the time, and it's another reason people like to, when they hear about that, it's usually an aha moment, like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can no longer say it was lost in the mail, right? We're not going to mail these things. Even email now is highly trackable, right? So we can find out what happened and when.
Yep, exactly.
So when we think about the world of inspections, I like to make believe that everyone's already using technology, software for their inspections, but I'm not so naive. I know a lot of people aren't. They're piecing things together, maybe using some pen and paper, some Excel, some Word documents, maybe some software, but they're doing all of these things. They're not really putting it all together in one solution. So when you think about the inspection process, what are the biggest benefits that come alongside using technology?
Sure. Again, we're all carrying a digital device in our pocket. So we have the ability right now to do that. And in a lot of scenarios, and I think I talked about this a little bit earlier, we're going out, like they're going, a pen and paper scenario, they're going out with a checklist or a clipboard and a checklist, and they're going through, but then pulling out your phone and taking the photos anyway, and then you're emailing them to yourself, trying to figure out how to add them to your Word document. Whereas, I mean, and this is kind of specifically to the people that do that process that I just described. Suppose you could, when you took those pictures, instead of writing or checking a box, you were done already. You weren't really going back and trying to navigate images that you sent to yourself. They're on your phone. Now I've got to delete those. So I would say, the ability to just cut out administrative time is the huge benefit of any digital inspection process. And it doesn't have to be a phone. It could be an iPad, whatever device that you choose that you want to use. So I would say that's probably the biggest game changer for going digital from paper and pen.
Yeah, and when we think about our industry, we hear it constantly that property managers have to wear a lot of different hats. They have a lot going on. At the end of the day, their probably most valuable skill set is the relationship with the resident, right? And when we require them to do things that take more time than necessary, it really isn't helping their situation, right? They're more stressed. They don't have time to help the residents. And it seems like this is just one of those areas that people really should fall in line and try to work with. And I'd imagine some of these efficiencies are also tied with this idea of less time updating things and double documenting, double data entry. You write it on a notepad, you take a picture, then you go back to the office, and then you have to put that data somewhere else, right? Because you're probably not going to send the resident a handwritten note, that you put on some scrap piece of paper. So, once you can use it in one platform, it makes it easier as well. Are you finding that people are taking the data, and maybe I can learn more about your product, they're taking that data that they're entering, and that's probably going directly to the resident at that point because it's in a format that is ready to be tenant facing.
Well, you have the ability within the software to generate the report. So let's just say you've got a checklist and it's got 20 items, or maybe you're doing a semi-annual inspection and the tenant's saying, oh, this is a problem, or that's a problem, or this is a problem. When you're in there, you can action items. So you can say, okay, we've got a plug item. We're gonna action that item right there, and then that could actually become a work order also, which means the maintenance team has to interact with it. But those action items and work orders can be separated from the main report. So you don't have to have this long report that you're sending to different people. You can say, these are the 3 items that are an issue within this. And then there's, again, a kind of an accountability loop within there. Okay, we've actioned those, whether we've either assigned those to Ray as a work order. I've got to say, I did that. Or we can action those and send those out to anybody externally, send it to the tenant, send it to a vendor, or just have the property manager actually filling the loop on that. Done. But if they're not, they are essentially sitting at the property level as items that haven't been completed, and it's not going to fall through the cracks anymore. And I think when it comes back to what you were saying about tenants, I think once you're completing those tasks for them and they're seeing that you're, again, proactive on these things, you're building a relationship that's going to keep them around for a lot longer.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of what I was saying about as you were describing that process of creating action items and it going to a maintenance person or to the property manager is it creates a world where you don't have to touch it more than once, right? Each person can just touch it the one time they need to touch it instead of multiple times. And, oh, well, it was on the inspection report. Now I need to move it over and do a maintenance request on it or a work order request. The less times you touch it, the more efficient you are. And I think it also creates a world where less errors are made, right? And getting all that data to the right place, the right time to the right person, it can be really, really complicated. So when you're looking at kind of the way that your platform is built, the things that you're doing, have you started to think about like what's next, right? Because I mentioned early on in this that inspection's been around for a long time, but we need to find ways to continue to improve them. How do you see inspections continuing to improve as we kind of look out into the future?
Well, I think the big buzzword is AI.
Oh, of course.
So everybody's talking about AI, and we have built that module into the software, and it's really amazing. We've launched it in 2 markets, the UK and South Africa, and we're getting ready to launch it here in the US. And what it does simply is it enables a system to look at an image and tell you what's in that image. And every time I see it, I'm literally blown away. And that is a time saver. I mean, it is a time saver. Now, it's never going to replace anybody. I know that. It's not going to replace an actual human going in and doing that. But it is going to save them time. And the fact that we might miss something. You mentioned it. Like we're busy. We're busy people operating busy properties. And sometimes you miss things. So the ability now for the image to be summarized really quickly, not to say that you're not going to want to go in and with anything AI, you're not going to want to go in and read it over and make sure it did it right, but it's going to save you that time of typing out all the blinds are broken in this, like that. And then we've built out a maintenance module as well that we're about to launch, and that's pretty neat in the fact that you can identify maintenance items without actually having to create an inspection. I'm walking through property. I see the fire exit door is broken or needs fixing. I can literally maintenance an item right there. And then that also becomes an audit on the property itself, not just because we've got property and then we've got units, but would be an audit on the property itself. So we feel like there's a lot of opportunity for us there. And because sometimes the property managers, that's what they want. They say, I walk my property every day. I walk every floor. I walk the outside. I do it. And I remember I used to do that as well. But back then it was literally fire door problem, let John know. and then John, here it is, or text John. And, but now we can, again, audit it, have it right there associated with the property so that we know if it's done or it wasn't done.
Yeah. And you had mentioned that earlier that, we are using the word inspection, but we really can broaden this to talk about, any type of moment that you're out looking at the property, whether it's intentional and it's a unit inspection, or like you said, it's my daily walk through the property, make sure everything's okay and everything's safe. That's nothing formal, right? It's not an inspection. It's not a full audit, but it can be all those things. And the fact that, people can use the same tool to do all of those things is really powerful, because you had talked about earlier about the need to add another piece of software. People want to minimize that, right? They want to get every penny out of every piece of software that they have. So they're not going to add, a new piece of software just for the random maintenance item that they find when walking the property. But if your tool can use it, that's just a value add there, and it keeps everything working the same process, and I think adds a lot of value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So tell me more, as we kind of move towards the end of the episode, tell me more about Property Inspect itself. So obviously inspections, if we want to use that term, but it does a lot more than that. But if you were to tell somebody, hey, this is where we really shine, this is what we focus on, this is how we help people most often, what are some of the things that you'd share?
Yeah, I would start with the basics, and that's it. We are a web and app-based inspection platform. So if you need to document anything, create a checklist of any sort, we can do that. To broaden that a little bit, we take an approach of, let's call it and I feel like Rent Manager does this too, but we've always taken like a field of dreams approach. Build it and they will come. And we have over 200 features associated with the software now. So we keep building, and we will continue to keep building. And that way, when people come to us and they say, I wish it would do this, or I wish it would do that, every year, every month, we're able to say, well, it does, or it's about to. So we're a really forward-thinking tech company. And then, this will continue to evolve. We've talked about compliance. We've talked about, inspections or compliance. That need within multiple industries for documentation around real estate and properties and rentals in particular is only going to grow. And so we feel like we've been building this for almost 12 years now, and we're not stopping. Our company itself has grown from, we're a little bit over 50 employees right now, and that's up almost 22 employees in 18 months. So we're really growing, and we're seeing more and more of a need for our product as we continue to grow. Now, we started with literally our foundational product was move in, move out inspections. That's what we built the software to do. And now I'd be hard pressed to think of an industry that we don't work in right now. They just keep coming to us saying, hey, can you build this? It looks like you can do this, can it? And again, we find ourselves saying, you know what, it can. And I think another thing about our company is we take a really hands-on approach. We're not like, and I noticed that here while I was in today touring the property is it's not like sign up for Property Inspect and here, have at it. You're on your own. No, we myself, I take an active role in a lot of accounts. Our account managers, our business development people are there through the whole process. They typically, because we know also, especially if you're moving from pen and paper, it's scary. It's like, it is a scary thing. And it's that back to that conversation of, we've always done it this way. I don't know. I don't want to be the champion. I don't want to take it on. So we take a hand-holding approach to making sure, to making sure that people are comfortable using it.
No, that's great. And, I've definitely noticed that in the conversations that we've had. It really is required, I think, in the tech world to have the hands-on approach and make sure the customer support, as much as we love the digital world that we live in, the human element really, really is important to making sure the experience is right, the product's right, and all of those elements. Now, when you think about the rental industry, the property management industry, I know you had mentioned kind of the multifamily world, senior living. You had mentioned a few. Any specific customer profile that you work with as far as number of units that's ideal? Is there a min, a max? Is there any areas of focus that you've had recently that you tend to find most of your growth is within?
Thank you for that question. Yeah. So to us, whether it's one user and 5 properties or 700 users and 40,000 properties, we are literally that scope. So we don't look at somebody that says, I'm too small. There's nobody that's too small, because just in my time, I've seen so many of our customers come in at, hey, we're just 2 users and we have 25 properties that we're managing, and now they're 20 users and they're 400 properties, So that's how we think, and that's how we go into relationships. I think build to rent is really kind of blowing up around the country. So we're seeing a lot of big operators coming in. We white label our product as well. So some companies come to us and they say, hey, we'd like to have our brand on the app or the reports itself. So we have no problem doing that also.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Build to rent does continue to grow. And, my take on build to rent is it's very interesting because we work with a lot of multifamily, single family, manufactured housing. I mean, there's a lot of other subsets of our industry that we work with, but those 3, build to rent kind of falls somewhere in the middle of all of those, right? You can operate it as if it's more of a multifamily with certain amenities and certain mindsets with multifamily, but they truly are, in many cases, separate units, right? Just like a single family unit would be. And there are some elements of manufactured housing in there as far as this idea of like, well, do you rent it? Do you sell it? All of these different things that you can really have happening in one community. So it's a lot of excitement around that. And I do think that's an area that's going to continue to grow really, really fast into the future, as many people are choosing to rent as a lifestyle, right? I say this all the time, that historically you rented before you could buy. There are many, many people that will rent their entire life, and that's a choice that they're making. They can afford to buy. They don't want to buy. They want that lifestyle.
Yeah. Which I can get as a homeowner can be daunting sometimes when you're like, oh no, and it's better if somebody else will handle that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One takeaway I would want to make sure that we have here is that getting back to not just size of customer, like to us that doesn't matter, but if you have a pain point, if you can think of something that you're like, I wish I had documented that. I wish I did, even if it's 1 or 2 or 3 questions that you want to have stored away or filed away and easy to find. That is something we do. It doesn't have to be this long checklist of every outlet in the building or every outlet in the unit and every blind and everything. If it's just like walk in, take a picture, what do you see? Or take a video, what do you see? That's what we do also.
That's great. Well, if people have questions about that and they want to learn more, what's a good way for them to connect with you and your team?
So we do demos. We do virtual demos. And I would say, it never hurts. If you've got 30 minutes and you're like, I just want to learn about what this is like, I may not do anything with it, and I'm going to let their business development person know that up front, but still I want to know about the software. I want to know what's new. I want to know what's new when it comes to inspections. Just book a demo with us. You can go right to our website and do that. We'll also be at your conference coming up in San Diego. Super excited about that. Last year was my first year there. And your customers are awesome. They're so much fun. I mean, we just, not only was it, you go there and we have a booth, so we're interacting with a lot of people. But one thing that Rent Manager does that's different, and I do a lot of these, has really interactive social events between the folks that are there as vendors and the customers itself, whether that's breakfast or whether that's a cocktail hour or an offsite event. I'm just blown away by this. And like I said, I do 5 or 6 a year, and you guys really have your act together on it. So we're excited to bring the team there, bringing 4 of us there this year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. No, we appreciate that. We love hosting that event. We love putting it on for our users and obviously our partners and vendors out in the industry. And we really value that in-person opportunity. We're an in-person culture in many ways. It's just that all about that connection, right? How do we continue to connect people and help the industry? Well, we'll be sure to drop the link to the website in the show notes. So anyone that wants to connect can definitely connect with your team and ask questions.
One more thing. We are on the marketplace within, so your customers can go right through the Rent Manager marketplace to find us also.
That's right. Yeah. If you're in the software, you definitely can find Property Inspect there, connect with them directly through that piece inside Rent Manager. Well, Ray, I really appreciate your time today coming in office, in studio to record this episode and really teach us more. Again, I feel like a lot of people know inspections. They do them all the time, but finding out what's new, what's available, and what's coming in the future is always very valuable.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a really nice city too. I enjoyed coming to, it's a new city for me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, happy to have you back here in the future. So thanks again for joining me today. And thank you to our audience for listening and watching into another episode. And until next time, keep going Beyond Rent.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Beyond Rent. If you enjoyed this podcast, spread the word on social media and with your peers in the industry. To be notified when more episodes are released, subscribe using your favorite podcast player. Beyond Rent is brought to you by Rent Manager Property Management Software. Learn more about Rent Manager's industry-leading software solutions at rentmanager.com. Until next time, keep going Beyond Rent.